Hello there, you know who I am. I'm joined today with Bill and Jeff on the West Ham Way, all things West Ham. How you doing, boys?
Yeah,
Really
great.
well,
Thanks, mate.
Good. So, getting excited with some news that I felt like it took forever for this to be announced. It was the worst kept, even more of a worst kept secret than our first signing. We have completed our second signing of the window. We have signed Alfonso Areola permanently. Jeff, do you think he will automatically become our number one?
I mean, we know he's the future for us. He's our long term number one, but I do think the start of this season we will see Fab starting as our number one keeper, and I think actually it'll be somewhat like it was when we had Jääskeläinen and Adrian. Jääskeläinen played through till Christmas, and I think ducked out with an injury, and then Adrian came in, did well, and it just transitioned naturally, didn't it? Adrian kept the gloves, so I think not so much with an injury, but I just think naturally over the course of the season that it will progress on to Areola. But I think to start, I think I would go with Fabianski, and I do think that Moyes will.
Mm-hmm. And Bill, what do you think, mate?
Yeah, I agree with Jeff. I think Fabianski will start the season, but it depends on pre-season. If Fabianski maybe, as Jeff said, maybe picks up an injury or he's shipping a few goals easily in pre-season, which I doubt. Then you think Areola will start the season, but no, I think Fabianski will start the season, and certainly in the league, and obviously Areola you assume would be the same as last season, take the cup games to start with, and we'll see how it goes. But it's just nice to have, obviously they were both at the club last season, but it's nice to have two permanent goalkeepers who are of the highest, or very top quality goalkeepers. I mean, it's the first time. I mean, we've had goalkeepers, as Jeff's mentioned a couple of examples there with Adrian and Jääskeläinen, and we've had it with Stephen Bywater and Jimmy Walker of similar ability. But in terms of top quality, both similar ability of the highest order. You're probably going back to when you had David James and Shaka Hislop at the club in the early 2000s. So it's nice to have two keepers equally as good as each other. There's not real drop off between either keepers. So it's great that's over the line, and for how cheap it was as well. You're thinking key goalkeepers I know would cost about 20-30 million, but I think us and Newcastle getting Nick Pope for 10 million. I think us it was only 8 million according to the Athletic earlier today. So that's a real bargain, because obviously we know how good it is, and he's only going to get better as well.
Yeah, I mean, thinking about it, since the days of Hislop, I think this is the first time both our permanent goalkeepers have been full-on internationals as well. Like Areola, admittedly, I think is third choice for France, but he's in the squads regularly. And Fabianski is number one, number two, depending on what move Szczesny's in for Poland.
I thought he was retired from international.
He's retired now, isn't he?
He's retired now, but what I'm saying is he recently. Whereas if you think about it, since James and Hislop, admittedly Hislop was for Trinidad and Tobago, not quite the same standard. We haven't really had our first two keepers be current international. Like Jääskeläinen had been retired a long time for Finland by the time he joined us, and Adrian was in a couple of squads for Spain. But going back to the days of James and Hislop, we've had two international goalkeepers. That's the last time I could think of. Because obviously we had Forrest before them, but again, it's Trinidad, Tobago, and Canada. They're hardly the elites of world football, whereas Poland are no slouches, and the French team are they're world champions, ain't they? I do agree with Jeff that I think it'd be incredibly unfair to drop Fabianski automatically, and I do see him as being the cup keeper to begin with. But I just think towards the end of the season, a few people thought this was going to happen at the end of this season, but Fabianski just kept doing well, in my opinion. We will see some transition towards the end of the season. I think this will be Fabianski's last year with us.
No, they weren't going to transition with the season just gone, with Areola being in on loan and unsure of his future as well. But I think now that we've got him permanently, I think it's inevitable that by the end of the season he would have taken the gloves permanently, and I hope so. But at the same time, Fab's great. He's one of the best keepers I've seen for us, so I certainly want to see him continue as a number one for now.
Yeah, definitely the best keeper overall for a sustained period of time, since probably we've had Robert Green. And there's a debate. I'd argue that,
That was-
Fabianski is actually the better goalkeeper out of the two of them, and I love Green.
That was the big debate with when Russ was doing his My Starting 11 series, and it was always
that was a tough one for me because I picked Green
Green or
because
Fab, wasn't it?
I think I picked Green because he's been slightly more consistent than Fabianski. So if Fabianski didn't have his injuries, I think that'd be more of a considered shout.
Yeah, defo. And like I said, people can talk. Like Jaskalainen was great in his day, but even when we signed him when he was good, he wasn't as good as at his best. Whereas I think we have had Fabianski when he first signed for us. That was Fabianski at his peak, in my opinion.
No, definitely.
That first season he had with us and his last season at Swansea was brilliant. And to think I believe, as the rumour was understood, we were considering picking him up for a free in 2014 and not renewing Jaskalainen. So that would have been brilliant if we had him since the 14-15 season with how he played for Swansea. But yeah, I see Areola as a cup keeper. It's a long-termism. I mean, he's young in goalkeeper years. And then again, you've all got the hyped young keepers we've got on our books in Trott and Hedgie. And one of those two I would think would be our long-term. Well, Trott would probably be our long-term number 2 once Fabianski and Randolph moved on. I do think Randolph will probably leave this summer as well for first team football. It doesn't make sense to have a third choice keeper on near enough first team wages for me as well. I think he's on about 60 grand a week, which would move us on to second topic of the people being overqualified to be in a secondary position almost. So Mark Warburton has been announced as our new assistant coach. Now, people may not know too much about Mark Warburton, but he's had within reason success everywhere he's gone. He's managed Rangers, QPR, and Brentford. Bill, do you think he's overqualified to be our assistant manager?
No, I don't think so. I think you mentioned his experience there. We also had a brief spell at Nottingham Forest as well. But we've seen it before over the years where managers become assistants at other clubs. Someone like Roy Keane, for example, was a manager and then became assistant at Republic of Ireland with Martin O'Neill and briefly at Aston Villa under Paul Lambert. But and Warburton hasn't managed in the Premier League. I think that might have been a bit strange if he had, and then becomes an assistant. Obviously, he's managed mainly in the Championship. Obviously, Rangers a huge club as we know. But no, I think obviously he's got the coaching credentials. He's had enough experience in the game. But I'm not sure whether he's one of his actual coaches on the training pitch. I think Paul Nevin definitely is one of them. So whether it will be for that, I'm not sure. I think he might be more sort of similar to Stuart Pearce, where he's maybe brilliant to scout players or scout the next opposition, set pieces and free kick analysis, that kind of thing. So I think with the experience of managing, I think that he'll be a real asset to David Moyes. So I think he's perfectly qualified. I think he's overqualified at all. Obviously, if he wasn't interested in the role, then he wouldn't have took it. So it's probably more of a sort of obviously it's a step up in terms of level. Obviously, mainly managing the Championship, but this could be a kind of opportunity for him. So I'm when it was first, it was completely out of the blue, wasn't it as well? That was made it even more better, really. I was really excited that he's part of the club.
Jeff?
Yeah, I think it's a win-win for both parties, really. He's certainly up there, and in return, he's sort of getting his foot in the door in the Premier League, isn't he? So, if he can make a bit of a name for himself, and if we go on to push further up the league than we already are, then I think it could be a deal that works out for both parties, and ultimately, he's going to be an asset to us. I'm sure about it.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, he comes from his background is absolutely incredible. He's sort of the inspiration for people that play Football Manager, thinking they become a manager, because he didn't get into management till late on. He only ever played non-league football for Boreham Wood, and I think he had a little spell at Enfield. I looked up this morning, but he started off as a PE teacher at St Clement Danes, which is like a one-off from a private school just outside of Watford, and then was like a Watford Youth Academy coach of the under-16s. Then decided to go travelling himself, to learn off of coaches like Mourinho and people like that in the around sort of 2008-10, and then out of nowhere got offered the assistant manager's job at Brentford at 1:30 in the morning by Nicky Forster in 2011, and that's how he got into coaching. Nicky Forster, he had met on these courses, offered him a role as an assistant coach at 1:30 in the morning to come in the next day for an interview, and yeah, and like I said, he's worked wonders at Queen's Park Rangers, turned them into playoff contenders when they were in total freefall when he first took over. My only small concern I have, and it's a similar concern I had with Pearce, which sort of half came true, is by having fantastic backroom staff, you again putting your football manager head on as well, they can quite easily be poached for lower level management positions. That's the only thing, is that it would never be, it would only ever be a short-term fix for 1 or 2 seasons before they probably move on and become a manager again. So that's my only thing, is that he's absolutely fantastic and, welcome the appointment. I don't think really we're going to get anyone better for the position to assist Moyes, because we've lost Irvin and then we've lost Pearce in 2 successive seasons. It's just, once again, I think it's short-termism in the coaching staff is the only concern I've got. But other than that, it's a fantastic appointment, and it's gone completely under the radar as well.
Yeah, no, agreed, man. But you can say that about any coach.
Yeah.
Can't you? They could be poached, unless you're like someone like Pat Rice, who was at Arsenal for a million years. Do you know what I mean? He was never going to leave unless he retired. But like, but it obviously shows if your coaches are being poached, and obviously they're doing a good job. So I don't, I'd rather have Warburton in, for a couple of years rather than someone who's mediocre and not really at the right stage. Look at Man United have had a huge problem over the years with their results. But you look at the coaches they've had. I think it's a great coup getting Steve McLaren back, by the way. Like, they haven't had the elite coaches that they had over the years with McLaren and Carlos Queiroz, etc. They've had Michael Carrick and Kieran McKenna, who's now, I think, is Ipswich's manager. Like, they haven't, and the American guy that was brought in last season, like one of the coaches, he was, I think it was at ESPN, Mark Ogden, very good journalist, Mark Ogden. So a few of the players were linking him to Ted Lasso. Do you know what I mean? So, like, clearly their coaching, I think, has played a part in their demise the last few years. And I think West Ham's, you'd argue, are actually better at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, it's not so much. It's not a bad problem to have. It's just that's the only concern I've got. Is okay, great for now. Going to have to, but always have someone almost on a conveyor belt to come in and help. Like, who knows? Someone else could come free by then. Yeah, but it's, again, good problem to have, and quite welcome. As I said as well, went completely under the radar. I mean, Jeff, did you hear anything about this beforehand? Whereas we've heard for a month, for Sundays, we've heard about Areola signing for us any day now for about 2 months.
Yeah, I don't suppose Warburton was the marquee signing that anyone was talking about. it just went completely under the radar. But I've just to sort of mirror what Bill said. I mean, if he comes in and is part of an outfit that's really successful, and it gets his foot in the door with a Premier League club as a manager in the future, then I think it's just a win-win for everybody.
Mm-hmm. As I said, yeah, his record speaks for itself. When he took over at Brentford, they were the nearly men of League One. They'd nearly been promoted so many times. He took them up, and then I think they very nearly made the playoffs in his first season in the Championship with them, and then went off to Rangers and took them. I believe he was the one that took them up to the Premier League initially, and left them. But yeah, he's had fantastic time. But obviously with fantastic times and looking back over the last few years, once again we're having a bit of deja vu here, guys. Lots of reports right now that we've offered, I think, a 14th contract to Jesse Lingard. So, guys, what are we thinking with the issue? I mean, we spoke about this last time. We have to speak about it again because there's been further developments according to the news. Jeff, do you still stand by your previous convictions on the signing of Lingard? I mean, you were very clear last time we were on. You were more than happy to sign him. Yeah,
for sure. I mean, he done a cracking job for us. It doesn't offend me in any way that he wants more money, given his free agent status. I mean, he sat probably fairly unhappy warming the bench at Man United deliberately to run his contract down to get himself into this beneficial position. So that's his business, and that I think that's fair game. So look, if we can get him, then I think it's fantastic for us. I mean, he was brilliant before. At the same time, of course, I'm sick of hearing about it. But that's football, isn't it? If we get him in the end, then I'll be made up. And if he's a big earner and the deal costs us whatever it costs us, then fair enough. I think him, Antonio and Bowen as a front three would be absolutely incredible, and I want to see it happen.
Bill?
Yeah, look, I've been more than happy to have Jesse Lingard back at the club. But there's just all this talk. Oh, is it going to drag all summer? Well, let's face it, that's not going to be the case because if you're Jesse Lingard, you want to get in any club pre-season. Pre-season's going to start pretty soon. And if he's got any hope of going to the World Cup, which is obviously a bit of a long shot now, but he needs to get a club soon as possible. So I think it'll be sorted one way or another fairly soon. I think, and I think Jeff's right in terms of he's got every right to seek his options elsewhere. I mean, everyone would, whether you're an accountant or a professional footballer, and you got your contracts up or you're leaving, then you've got every right to look at the best option for you and like your family, etc. But I think the problem with last season, we sort of left it too late, and then end up getting Vlasic. Obviously that didn't really work out last season. Hopefully, obviously performs better. But there's just, if we could get Lingard, that's a bonus. But I think obviously there's other targets we've been linked with in the forward line, which we'll touch on in a minute. So I'd rather just focus on them. If we could get Lingard, fantastic. But if not, then at least we'll have, hopefully before that, we'll have some options through the door anyway.
Yeah, I mean, on paper, it would be a no-brainer having him in on a free contract. Although initially there was talk of him wanting 180 or 150 grand a week. I did balk at that, but I took on board Jeff's sort of view process of, well, what's the difference between signing a player for 20 million over 3 years, effectively? My only issue is will the magic happen again? I'm of the belief, and we've seen how good Lingard can be, but I refuse to believe that as much as Man United were struggling last season, they still didn't use him. So not too sure what was going on there. But he could come back, because he's not got that point to prove with the loan. He's got the contract. He's got a contract. I'm not saying that he's only motivated by that, but that's just another layer. Whereas when he came to us, he came with a huge point to prove to Ole Gunnar Solskjaer and to Gareth Southgate to try and get back in the England team. He hasn't quite got that motivation this time. So is there any concern on your end that we could give him a massive contract and him actually not be anywhere near what he was beforehand?
Oh, of course. You said that with any transfer. It's an example I've said a lot about Alexis Sanchez going to Man United. If that'd be a perfect fit, but it was a complete flop. So, and every manager and same with managerial appointments. There are ones like Jurgen Klopp and Pep Guardiola, like they're obviously going to succeed, but there's other ones that you just don't know. So, of course, there's that concern. And we'll see. There's an example we've chatted about before. Hurita Lunga, obviously less quality of player, but Hurita Lunga was sensational when he was on loan at West Ham, and then he signed permanently. He was rubbish. So I wouldn't expect Lingard to be like that at all. That's obviously an extreme example, but yeah, of course, there's that fear. But I think, as I say, if Lingard's got any hope of getting to the World Cup later this year, then you'd like to think he'd sign somewhere soon and get back to playing as soon as possible. But of course it's a concern. But hopefully with Moyes and the staff and the other players knowing the character for that 6 month period, then you like to think they'd have a better idea of what kind of person they're getting through the door on a permanent basis.
Yeah, I think he's obviously got a good relationship with Moyes, a good professional relationship, and there's respect there. So I think if he signs, that's great, and he will be all in, and he'll be giving it his all for us. And the added dangle of the carrot of going to the World Cup is there. It is an outside. I mean, I almost can't see it happening. But look, if he comes in and plays like he did last time, that conversation will change so quick. The narrative will flip. So I think if he comes in, if he makes the decision to come to us, I think it's a big decision for him to make. And when he gets here, he'll be every bit as good as he was before.
Yeah, sounds. As I said, it all sounds very good until it happens. Until he's there with the shirt or the scarf.
Yeah,
and it's just the fact that it goes on. Like one thing I'm glad or much relieved with this year is you don't then have the United fans on Twitter going, "Oh, but he's the reason you got Europe. You have to sign him for £40 million. £40 million with 1 year left on his contract." Good one. And they'll turn around and say, "Oh, we'll give you 50 million for Declan Rice and Lingard. That's worth 90 million." No, it's not. It's not. So at least we don't have to put up with all that this time.
But we do have to put up with him dancing on TikTok and generally taking way too long to decide what he's doing.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. If he really, this is what I'm saying. If he wanted to join us, I think he would have signed by now.
Yeah,
I think he either the negotiations are slightly wide of the mark of certain papers reporting, or he is just being right. I don't want to make the same mistake. Maybe another club could come in. There's talk of him potentially wanting to leave England and go play in Europe, and this is probably the only opportunity he's going to get to have that. Because let's say he signs us on a 3-year deal. I'm not too sure clubs would take a punt on it, would pay the money we would want if we were to sell him. And by the time that contract's up, is he going to be in a position to play for these clubs in Europe? Possibly not. Could be still. So it could be his only opportunity. So I do understand maybe if that's the reason it's taking so long, I understand. But on that subject, signings from Europe, are there further signings on the horizon, guys?
I wish I could say for certain.
Well, that's the thing. We've been linked very, very heavily with Lingard Danjuma at Villarreal, who many people of the scout variety Twitter accounts were saying we should have signed him from Bournemouth when they went down, and potentially I think we had the opportunity to sign him again last summer. Looking like it's probably going to cost us about 40 million euros if we do get it, or so 40 million pounds, 45 million euros if we do get him. So, Bill, what's your thoughts on the links right now? Because it's literally everywhere. Every single news site. If you Google West Ham, it's the first thing that comes up.
Very exciting, mate. Yeah. Look at the record he's had for Villarreal. I mean, Villarreal, even buying him, I think they spent 25 million euros on it, buying him from Bournemouth, who are in the Championship. Villarreal don't really make those kind of signings for that kind of figure anyway. So let alone buying someone from the English Championship. So, and he did well for Bournemouth in the Championship, not so much in the Premier League. Bournemouth got relegated to scoring the goals, but he's got the experience of English football, and he's been brilliant for Villarreal. So they got to the Champions League semi-finals. Would things have been different if he was available for the Liverpool semi-final? We'll never know. But if you score 6 goals in 11 Champions League games, you're obviously a very good player, and 10 goals in La Liga as well, I think. 10 goals in La Liga. Yeah, so I think he's certainly an upgrade on someone like Cyber Rama. I'd argue. If you can play up. I think he's played a lot through the middle. I'm just looking on who scored the.
He can also play as a striker as well.
That's what I said through the middle. And, out wide as well. So obviously we play a fluid front three at West Ham, and it will fit in definitely in that mould. And there seems to be have a decent bit of pace and dribbling, threat from counter attack. So he seems to be a player that would suit our system. So he's at a good age, only 25, I think he is. So he's a Dutch international. He'll most likely go to the World Cup later this year. So I think. I think it'd be a really good signing.
Yeah, Jeff, any thoughts on the guy?
Yeah, obviously looks like an exciting player. Obviously, a good pedigree, in Europe, and been fantastic for Villarreal. The one concern I've got, obviously, it's a big fee, a big chunk of whatever our budget may be. It's and he seemed very similar, maybe an upgrade, but very similar to what we've got. I know he can play through the middle, but that's not probably his strongest position. And I'd say, really, we need three strikers plus Antonio. So, looking at the positions we need to strengthen, if we're using 40 million quid to sign someone in a position that we've already got 3 or 4 players in, I'd probably rather see us in the news now pushing for an out-and-out striker. That would be more appealing to me. That said, obviously does look like a good player, and if he comes in, maybe Ben Rama goes out, in which case it's a different conversation. That said, if we get Lingard as well, or we're overloading all these positions. Meanwhile, we've got Arthur Masarako at left back.
Yep, and it's more also Vlasic is all, but apparently once we get a signing in the winger forward position, he will be ready to go out loan. I read it was Torino that he's going to go out on loan to, with an option to buy. Well, we could touch on two subjects there to Bridget. So maybe an out-of-out striker like Brozier, who we told the entire world we're going to bid 30 million for, and then Chelsea went 30 million, a little bit more, please. Or there's several left backs we've been linked with. There's Tagliafico, Ajax is apparently only available for 4 million. And recently, Luca Pellegrini at Juventus, who I only know from being amazing for me on Football Manager. So that's if we can go on that, I would say definitely sign him other than Tagliafico. He's about 23, 24 years old, left back. So got lots of years in him. So any views on those? Like obviously we talked about prioritizing positions last time, but obviously targets are now being identified. So, for example, then guys, there's a sort of a double question here: is your views on Brozier and your views on potential left back signings? We'll start with Jeff.
Well, I think in this game, if you identify your man and you know you want him, then you just got to go and pay what it takes to get him. So if Moyes has decided Brozier's the man, I don't know if he has or not, but if he's decided he's the man, then need to go out and get him. It's as simple as that. As for the left back position, I identified that as the position that I felt we needed to strengthen the most. But it feels a lot to me like we're going with Cresswell and Masuaku, and that is what it is. I mean, all the noises I'm sort of hearing coming out of the club, and even looking at the training pictures, you know, there's Cress and Masuaku at the front of the albums of the training pictures, and it feels to me like those are our left backs, which obviously Cresswell's great and everyone's got a soft spot for Arthur Masuaku, but I do feel we need an upgrade. Further to that, central midfield we identified last time, and isn't it interesting that the bookies have slashed the odds on us signing James Ward-Prowse, and I'd like to know why they've slashed the odds on that. I don't know what.
I could tell you right away.
Yeah, please do tell me.
They slash odds all the time, so people load on money, and then suddenly the signing doesn't happen. This is why, especially with Sky Bet, like they'll put rumor stories out there all the time. They'll slash odds, and I'm not saying it's deliberate, but the amount of times I've seen mates of mine be burned, load money onto a transfer, and it turns out didn't happen because of a hiccup. I find they lower the odds on certain linked players from time to time, just to sort of hedge the bets, really, in my honest opinion.
Even money, there's no value. I mean, is anyone lumping on even money now? I mean, it doesn't feel like a value bet to me. I mean, we're probably getting a little bit off-piste here. We're talking about the betting side of it, but that doesn't entice me to want to.
Okay. I didn't know it was evens, but it was like, I thought it was just good odds now, like slashed at something like 3-1 or something.
Yeah, it was even. It was evens earlier when I saw the article about it. But yeah, it doesn't. I don't know. I wonder what's driving that. There's got to be something behind the scenes that's going on. But then with my track record of tipping up Ronaldo to Man City, I mean, I wouldn't listen to penalties.
Well, you weren't too wrong. Apparently, that was going to happen, and then because of that, Alex Ferguson personally intervened. Is I think what the story might.
Well, I tipped it at 7-1. It went to even money after I tipped it, and then it went down the Swanee. Yeah.
Well, it could be again. Don't want to push the doomsday button, but it could be that we're in for James Ward-Prowse because one of our midfielders is on the leave. Like there's talk, there's always going to be speculation about Rice, and there's lots of talk about Soucek. You know, his contracts talks apparently haven't gone too well, depending on who you believe. Other people are saying, well, we're going to do it at the end of the window. This is just paper talk. So that could be what it is. I mean, Bill, where do you stand on that?
On what? Sorry.
On basically the James Ward-Prowse scenario.
Yeah, I think we've mentioned it in the last show that, you know, I'd be happy to be prepared to spend a lot of money on James Ward-Prowse. I think, you know, he's in the prime of his career, England international. Yes, of course, his set pieces are fantastic. Just ask Pep Guardiola; he raves about it a lot. But he's the best set piece taker in the world. But like, you know, there's more to his game than that. He's the top scorer for Southampton last season, and his energy and his passing in the middle of the pitch is very good. So yeah, so you get more caps now for England. So yeah, I would move heaven and earth to try and sign him. Obviously, it costs a lot of money, but as we need to look at other cheaper options, and so be it. But yeah, I'd certainly move for Ward-Prowse. But yeah, I think what's exciting about Brozier is I think he. You know, he's only 20 years old and he's got that experience at Southampton playing in a pretty mediocre side. And, you know, you definitely suit our style of play. And I think, you know, obviously the fee can be, you could say, a bit extortionate, and that's probably true. But, you know, with the inflated transfer fees nowadays, that's just the going rate, and we would be buying on their potential. And Chelsea want to obviously raise as much money as they can. They've had a good success of selling good players over, back to Mo Salah and Kevin De Bruyne. Obviously, they probably should have kept them. They got good money from them at the time, so they want to try and get as much money as they can. So, I think Broja would suit our style of play. So in terms of him being linked, I'm quite happy with. As much as Ismail Sarr, I think we touched on before we started recording. It'd be someone would suit us as well. And in terms of the left backs, I've just had a quick look at Tagliafico, and I think he's an experienced left back. Seems to be good at passing and concentration. Seems to be pretty good. So whether he'd come in and be a regular starter, don't know. But I mean, I certainly be more happy with him as a backup than Masuaku, I'll tell you that much.
There was talk. I think there was claims from his agent that we'd struck a deal to sign him last window, but that was put down to him pushing for a larger contract at Ajax, which is why he's being sold so cheap. I think there's some issues with contracts over there, but he was raved about a couple of seasons ago as being a fantastic dynamic attacking left back. I haven't mentioned Sarr, but I have it on good authority from a friend of mine that basically worked for Watford Football Club for a long time, saying that allegedly there's a deal to be had if we want it, similar to sort of a Hoslook sort of situation, but with a lot more money. But I think it could be that we're weighing up value for options. This is where the new link with Danjuma. I've murdered the pronunciation of his name. Danjuma, that's it. I've murdered it. I keep Ben Rama, Danjuma, well, it could be that if that proves to be too expensive, then a £25 million deal for Sarr from Watford could be the backup option in that situation for an out-and-out wide player. But it could be, like we said the other week, that Moyes might want to convert him into a striker. This is all pie in the sky talk because we are being linked with lots of things. But it's nice to be linked with players we want rather than the Will Salthouse clients that we always linked with every 5 minutes.
Yeah, and also players that you can see fit in our system. Do you know what I mean? Like
precisely.
rather than a scattergun approach. I mean, don't get me wrong. I think obviously go back to but Seb Haller and Felipe Anderson, and even go back further, like Javier Hernandez, particularly Hernandez. What a striker he is and was, but he didn't suit our way of playing. Hence why he wasn't a regular starter. So I'm sure all fans would rather have the right players that fit our system, and the players we've been linked with. That you can see all of them actually in some way fitting in that mold.
Yeah, and end of the day, we've been linked with a few players that are a bit left field, like Saza Kalajic. Well, I've just had to Google to make sure I got his name right. 6'7" centre forward, 6'7" centre forward. That apparently the German media are saying we've agreed to sign him. Okay, great as a plan B off the bench for the last 10 minutes. Like Leeds at home, he had been right in the mixer with the balls we were putting in rather than Sam Perkins or Bowen. But that's what he would be. It would be effectively, if we still had Andy Carroll, it would be the Andy Carroll option to come on for the last 10, 15 minutes against a side that are just sitting back. I don't really see us spending 20 odd million pounds for a player that isn't going to be used predominantly as a starter. Not that he's not got the quality to start, just it's not that style of play. He's the type of striker Burnley probably should have got in January to replace Wood. But yeah, so it's just interesting. Like with the threat of Sam Johnson has finally gone. He has signed for Crystal Palace. So this whole we're going to sign Sam Johnson on a free instead of Areola has gone out the window at long last. Are there any other players that we've been linked with that you'd like to discuss? I think we covered them all.
Oh, yeah, it's probably a million others that we haven't mentioned. So I think that I think particularly Broja, I think is the one that and Danjuma, I think are the two that stand out for me in terms of obviously their positions we certainly needed to look at, and judging by how they've played and their records, and the price tags, I think they're all pretty reasonable. Got to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, if we'll probably get them two and James Ward-Prowse for a combined 160, 170 million. You add in a good, and that's 200 million spend. Realistically, it's not going to happen. Sadly,
No.
I would prioritize, especially if we're keeping hold of Souček and Rice. I would prioritize the forward and another wide man over a centre mid and a left back over a centre mid. Personally, at 75 million for James Ward-Prowse, there's I'm not going to even attempt to say his name, but there's the Turkish lad at PSV Eindhoven that we've been heavily linked with as well. 21-year-old box-to-box midfielder, probably a more affordable alternative to James Ward-Prowse, but I doubt that he'll be anywhere near as good.
And when. Sorry, chatting.
No, go on.
We were also linked with a return for Josh Cullen as well. I don't know if you guys.
I never should have got rid of him. It was ridiculous.
Yeah. I know. I totally agree. And you can just see James Ward-Prowse not happening and Cullen coming back. But that being said, if we keep Souček and Rice and Cullen as cover, then I'm perfectly happy.
Coventry as well.
Yeah, and allocate that money to getting in Brozier, then it's happy days.
Yeah, Brozier and one of Saar or Danjuma. And
don't forget there's the loan market as well, which you don't need to, obviously it's only June, it's not even July yet, so maybe towards the end of the window, I'm sure there'll be a couple of loans we could potentially get in as well.
Well, it wouldn't surprise me again with what I've been told is the structure of the deal with Saar is that we could do I think we tried to do this with Scott Parker, but Tottenham said no, which was we offer them a large loan fee to loan Saar for a year, and that way if they get promoted, they get Saar back. If they stay down, we buy him. That could be something that could happen. I don't think it would. But yeah, there's going to be lots of options. This will drag on, until deadline day pretty much. Will we no doubt be linked with everyone under the sun in the last couple of days. But hopefully,
but it's nice. It's nice to have. Sorry, Dennis, but it's nice to have two signings in the bag. Okay. It's not even July yet. So it's nice to have that, as well as the other signing seems to be quite far in development. Obviously not over the line, but it's not like we've been linked and that's it. There seems to be a lot of talks and progression there. So we'll also wait and see.
It could be the new structure in the club around scouting and identifying these signings to get the deals done seems to be taking shape now, doesn't it? And we seem to be doing the business a little bit more directly and a little bit more efficiently. But time will tell. I'm probably making that statement prematurely, but it's so far so good if you ask me.
And I think with Warburton as well, because Moyes does like to buy from like the lower leagues and stuff. And I think Warburton obviously managing the Championship and having that experience of buying players, and they will know the good youngsters in those leagues. I think that'll be a bonus as well as obviously his first team duties.
Well, there's Keane Lewis Porter as well at Hull that we've been heavily linked with. I know Watford have also been looking at him as a Saar replacement. But if they wanted to spend money on that, that's another player. Again, Warburton would definitely 100% know exactly what he's all about, but having managed QPR for the last couple of years. So again, he could give first-hand experience over to Moyes. I think because some of the things he did at Brentford as well, I think he was more of a technical director while also being the assistant manager for a while. So he's definitely got a large background in recruitment. But yeah, it's good. I mean, this time last year, we had Areola on loan pretty much until the week before the deadline passed. I remember we were all in the pub. Jeff sadly wasn't there, but Bill, we were in the pub when we announced Zuma had signed, and I thought Corey was winding me up for the first minute. I thought he was joking. I was like, no, we've actually officially announced him, because Moyes had done his press conference saying that only option on the bench I've got is Yarmolenko's left foot. I need reinforcements. Baiting out the board, saying I need players, and all they got in was a keeper on loan in summer. But unless there's any more transfers to suggest, we can move on to our last topic, the fun little light warm down. So, what song would you like to hear added to the regular pre-match playlist, gentlemen? So obviously we have a few songs. So Battle with Honor, Bubbles are the first two before they come out, and before then there's always Clubfoot by Kasabian and Welcome to the Jungle by Guns N' Roses. So is there a song you would like to hear added to the pre-match ritual? Just fire away, guys, whichever song you want.
Do you want to go, Jeff, first?
Yeah. So my second love is the Pittsburgh Penguins. I'm an avid supporter of them as well, almost as much as West Ham, but not quite, I suppose. And they come out to a song by Metallica called "Seek and Destroy," and that is a good one to get you pumped. So I'd love to hear that one added.
Bill?
No, it was two that I thought of. One is a instrumental from The Matrix called "Club to Death" by Rob Dugan. The Camino version, I'm gonna say. I think that's the one from the film, like the extended version. So that's a really good track. The other one is from the brilliant film Goal, The Dream Begins, the first one. It's a track where Santiago Nunez is on his way to Newcastle. It's on the train, a panoramic shot, and it's by Dirty Vegas. It's called Human Love. So I'd probably say one of those two, I'd say.
I need to listen to that. I can't think of it at the top of my head.
It's a tune. Yeah.
Well, my one. Jeff's going to laugh at this. I'm just going to say Motorhead, Triple H's theme, the game. Needs to be in that needs to be added in. I'd say, Russ would play it at half time when they came out. The other one I'd say, it's a great one to sing along. And if you've seen the baseball film Major League with Charlie Sheen in the 80s, but X's version of, not X West Ham employee, it's a band called X. X's version of Wild Thing is quite a good tune to get crowds going and singing along. But yeah, that or Seven Nation Army would be the other one I'd add in, because it's just something that gets the blood going, gets people chanting, or maybe Thunderstruck by AC/DC as well could be a shout. But I'm going to stick with The Game by Motorhead, because
no brainer.
Yeah, no. All of these are good. Well, I'll reserve judgment when I hear Bill's second option, because I'm not going to judge without knowing it. But all of these are good shouts. All of these would fit in the vibe very well, I think.
I would say this as a pre-match one, but it's played post-match, so they can't really repeat it. Is the one by Foo Fighters, "Learning to Fly."
Learn to Fly. Yeah, that's one of Russ's ones he likes to put on if we haven't won, because we haven't won is always I think there's Chris Jericho's band Fozzy have a song called Judas he likes to play if there's a draw. Every time I hear it, I'm like, this is I'm annoyed. I remember at the end of the Leon game, I was furious, but then I was like, oh no, but this is a great song. I'm happy with that. But yeah, so
why don't we link a couple of these tunes in the description? And then we can have a few in the comments and tell us.
Yeah, definitely. If people commenting in the comments below, let us know what songs you would add to the warm up, and we'll get in DJ Russ's DMs. Suggest them to him.
Yeah, anyway, let's know your transfer thoughts as well. It'd be great to
definitely. Are we talking out our backside regarding Brozier? Possibly. Is there anything? Any closing thoughts you want to add? Any of you guys want to add before we sign off?
No, just it's nice to, as we were saying earlier, nice to be linked with a lot of players. As I say, most of them you could, if not all of them, you could see fit our system, and it's nice to get, a couple through the door before July, hopefully we can keep this momentum up. Yeah,
it's a good positive start, and I'm also wanted to say how glad I am to be back doing this, and we've got something to talk about now. We haven't sat down and spoken for a few months, have we? So it's nice now that I hope there's be a steady churn out of news and topics now for us to touch base on every week or two.
Yeah, definitely. And the other thing I'd add with all the signings, they're all signings that are either equal to what we've got or they improve what we've got. It's not like we're being no disrespecting. Like if you're playing professional football this level, you're good at football. But we've been linked for too long with players that would be okay. Like my friend, the United fans' obsession with us signing Phil Jones, for example. No disrespect to Phil Jones, sure he's a great professional, but he's nowhere near an improvement on what we've got. And there's no point us signing backfielders anymore, as we established in the last show. But in any event, you've heard from me, you've heard from Bill, and you heard from Jeff. We will be back shortly with another video. I will be looking to do some live ones moving forwards as well.
Don't forget to subscribe to the Patreon.
Yep.
Links in the description.
Yep, links in the description. Subscribe to Patreon for the most exclusive and up-to-date West Ham news, and also some fantastic podcasts with former West Ham players. I believe Jimmy Walker's got a section on there as well, which is always a must-see. And but also ensure you like, share, and subscribe to the West Ham Way. Thank you very much for your time. Come on, you Irons.
Come on, you Irons.
Come on, you Irons.